Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today I am filming part 2 of the video I posted last weekend talking about the ability to have goals in both triathlon training and weight loss at the same time. So I will do the same thing I did on that video, and I do want to start off with a disclaimer / trigger warning. If you have struggled with any sort of disordered eating in the past or do currently struggle with that, please click off of this video. I say that just because some things that may come up, since it is related to dieting and weight loss to some extent, this is probably not a video that would be productive to your health. I also did want to, at the start of this one, talk a little bit about scope of practice, because I do think that's an important thing to point out. So I will be upfront, I do not have any credentials in the health, wellness, training, nutrition space. So everything I talk about does come from my personal background and my experiences with this. Now, I do have a lot of experience, so my hope is to give valuable information that comes from my experience. But if you're looking for individual specific guidance, I would recommend seeking out someone like a registered dietitian if you're looking at the kind of diet and wellness side, or obviously if you're looking at your training, I would look for someone who is a triathlon coach. Now, that is obviously a very broad category. I would just look for someone who understands your goals and can provide quality coaching. So with that out of the way, I do want to go ahead and jump in because I feel like I will talk a lot. Just to recap, the main point that I wanted to get across in my last video, it's just that the two goals do need to be separated to prevent one from being the entire purpose for the other. So you're not eating to train and you're not training to eat, is kind of how I view it. Sorry, cat was yelling and there was a wasp in my house earlier. That was a whole thing. So I did have to double check there were no more bugs in the house. But basically, I just want to make sure that I'm encouraging people to have a healthy relationship between the two. And to me, that healthy relationship does require separating the two things so that I can make sure one is not necessarily having a large influence over the other. So with that out of the way, the first thing I want to talk about was setting realistic goals for weight loss and for training. So I'm going to talk a little, because I feel like the primary driver of these two videos is the weight loss side of it. I'm going to talk about that more, but I do also want to talk about triathlon goals. So I'm going to start there. Just like any type of goal, your goals need to be, I think they call them SMART goals. I'm not going to go through that. You can look it up. I forget how many times I have had to learn about that in my lifetime. But basically, you want your goals to be achievable. So for someone like me, I'm not a runner by training. I never was. So for someone like me, getting back to running a sub 30-minute 5K sounds like a great and achievable goal. So that might be one of my goals, where somebody else, they might be just starting out, so just running the whole 5K might be their goal. Or someone that maybe has a running background, their goal may be to go sub 20 minutes in a 5K. I don't actually know what's realistic. Like, running paces are not my thing. But that's just to say, you want to have something realistic. You also probably want to have a date you want to achieve that by. Now, that does mean you may not achieve your goal. But it also, to me, the important thing with triathlon goals is to have for me, at least, it really helps to have something I'm working towards and that I'm able to see progress towards. And maybe that just means I reevaluate my goal. And if I come really close, well, I'm probably not gonna keep that same goal because I might hit it too quickly. So then you're gonna reevaluate and look at what you're going to work towards the next time. So that's kind of on the triathlon and training side. That could also be a race distance that you wanna do, or it could be a specific race you wanna complete. It could just be, I want to be able to run 30 minutes without stopping. It could be anything. But the big thing is just make it something achievable. And I like to have time limits, so I really have something to focus on and there is an end in sight, and you're not gonna feel like you're just working towards something forever. I met a woman at my gym. She had the goal of, I forget what weight she wanted to be able to squat, but she wanted to do it by her birthday or something. I thought that was a great goal, and she achieved it. Like, she killed it. So with weight loss, it's the same thing. You're not able, or it's a similar thing. You shouldn't stay in a calorie deficit forever. And that's a mistake that I made in the past. When I was eating at that really low calories, I was doing that long term. So I didn't do that for just a few months and then reverse out of it. I just kept eating that little, hoping to lose more weight. And so that's why I think you need to have a time limit on when you're gonna hit, like when you want to hit that goal by. And again, you may not reach it. So for me, I know like the ultimate goal I have, I'm not gonna be able to reach very quickly, because again, I want to do this in a slow, controlled way, and also to reverse out of it slowly. So for me, what I've gone with is I'm going to go with 12 weeks in my current deficit, and then a 2-week kind of diet break refeed is kind of what my plan is. That way I'm not staying in a deficit for all this time, and hopefully that helps with some of the metabolic adaptation that I expect to experience during this process for myself. Another important thing is if your goals are weight loss, but you are also training for triathlon and you have races coming up, you do need to be realistic with, you probably should not be in a deficit right coming up to that race. So that would be where for myself, if I did have a race coming up, I would time that diet break, and I would probably do that for the 2 weeks before the race. That way I know I'm not going into that race depleted. So I think it's just very important to be realistic about your goals. You need to set them so that, one, they are achievable, but also understand the amount of time it may take to achieve that goal. So next thing, again, I have notes on my computer just because this way I'm not going to forget anything, and I do go off topic easily. So kind of following what I was just saying about your nutrition and going into a race, it's also really important to plan your nutrition around your training. So I talked about on the last video my sandwich I ate after my bike ride, which I also had last weekend, and it was so good. So I talked about that, and this is the same idea. Sometimes your calories need to be higher. Like, I can't stay in my same calories all week, because I know there's usually at least one day, like I did the math. If I had actually tracked that whole day and stopped eating when I hit my calories, I would have been in a 1,000 calorie deficit that day. That is not good. So there are times when your calories do need to be higher than maybe what your deficit is, than maybe what the number you eat most of the time is. And there are a couple ways I look at this. So in this case for me, what's working right now, just based on like the distance and time of my workouts, is on those big workout days, I'm kind of doing that like untracked day, but it's really like a meal close to my workout, because I need that for recovery, is gonna kind of be the really large untracked meal, and then my breakfast and my dinner are gonna be very similar to what I would eat normally. So that's one way I'm doing it. But then there's also the issue of longer workouts. So because I like to race long distance, so I get into, like, you get into workouts where you're going to need fuel. So the first thing I would say is I would never count those, like if I am tracking calories on that day, I would not count the ones that I consume during a workout. And I would probably take the same approach that I'm already taking with that day and say, well, one, those calories don't exist to me, because I know that those are essential for getting through the workout without hitting the wall. Second thing I would say is same thing. That may be the day that I'm going to do like my untracked meal, and that might be 2 days for some people. I mean, I think for me, I'm still probably staying in a deficit. It's just I don't want to let it get that extreme. Or even if you're going to maintenance on those 2 days, like it's something that your body needs for a recovery. So I think with longer workouts, it's really important not to try and use them to increase your deficit, but more than anything to actually make sure that you're properly fueling yourself after those workouts to be able to recover, and to understand that you really do need to take your weight loss slowly. And part of that might be that you can't eat the same amount every single day, because on these big workout days, you do need more to be able to recover. And again, like I said, this is why I would probably take the approach of anything I eat during the workout just doesn't exist. And same thing as what I'm doing currently, where after the workout, I might have a larger meal, or I might have like a large dinner that day that is untracked, because I know that's what my body needs. Which that just covered my last 2 points on this sheet. So in summary, just kind of going back through the things I touched on in the last video as well as this one, obviously weight loss does impact performance, and training can impact weight loss because you're going to be burning more calories. But at the end of the day, to me, the biggest thing is keeping those two goals separate so that you're not eating to train or training to eat. I think overall, there's nothing wrong with having both as goals. For me personally, it's going really well, and it's giving me some structure back that I maybe lost when I wasn't training as much. The biggest thing for me though at this point is I've learned a lot over the last few years. I learned a lot for myself when I was restricting calories too much and I was basically training to eat, that I'm now able to take that and apply it to my own training, as well as share it with the people that might be watching this video, so that they can understand maybe a little bit better like how to structure your goals, how to plan your meals. So like for me, again, timing of nutrition is really important, and I talked about eating that big meal after my bike ride. It also means that if I am like, so earlier this week, I came home from work and I actually made what I would call a mistake. I came from work. What did I do that day? I went for a run, and I'd wanted to get in my first workout of the day in the morning, but I've been having trouble getting up. So I went for a run right after work, and then I was going to the gym. And I actually intended to eat a snack before going to the gym, because I was obviously going to be I was going to be depleted after the run, and I was headed to the gym. Now, thankfully, I was doing upper body in the gym, so it didn't affect me too much, but I do feel like my lift might have gone a little bit better had I remembered to eat that meal in between the two workouts. So timing of nutrition is very important just for that reason alone, making sure that you have enough energy to support your training. So in summary, yes, you can do both, but there are a lot of factors that you need to consider, and you also need to consider that sometimes progress is probably going to be slower than what you want it to be. And I'm a prime example of that myself. Like, I would love to suddenly be back to my greatest running shape, but it's not going to happen overnight. So while they are both possible, it's just really important to take an honest look at where you are, what your goals are, and how you're going to achieve them, to make sure you're doing it in a healthy and sustainable way. And healthy and sustainable for me, like I said, it does mean that 12 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And then when I do eventually get to the point that I feel like I am in the body that I want to be in terms of level of leanness that is maintainable year round, I also think that sustainable means finding a proper way to get out of that. So for me, that's going to be a really slow reverse diet that I'm hoping will also at that time assist training. So maybe if my training hasn't progressed as much, hopefully by that point, like getting that extra fuel will help. So I hope that this was able to provide some additional information on what I talked about last week and some beneficial information to some people out there. If you did like the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.